Today we're going to look at the Marathon Pilot's Chronograph, or CSAR as some people call it, Chronograph Search and Rescue. A little history of Marathon for you here. Marathon are the official supplier of watches to US Marine Corps, US Air Force, the Canadian Navy, amongst many other forces around the world. And we work very closely with Marathon to understand what they're doing, to understand how they achieve this trusted supplier status, which they've had since the 40s for the Canadian Armed Forces, and to understand really what makes a Marathon watch special. Marathon, as I said, have been making watches really since the 40s, the early 40s. Marathon watches today are still made in Chronograph in Switzerland, so they're still a Swiss-made watch. And there is a huge amount of technical and practical watchmaking knowledge at Marathon. So if you ask Marathon a technical question, they're totally on top of it, because as they say, they have to supply thousands of watches to armed forces around the world, and they can't afford to make mistakes. Those watches have to work. Now, one interesting thing we've got here, and I'll put this watch to one side at the moment, is we've obtained the Marathon documents, the performance specifications. This is for the US Armed Forces, and I won't go into all of this because it's about 30-40 pages, but basically there is their performance specification, which, as you can see, goes on and on here about the movements. There are different types of watch they make, both quartz and automatic, about the luminosity, about the temperature performance, about perspiration types, about the readability in darkness, about altitude limits, and about the testing. So there's a lot here that these watches have had to go through. Accuracy during different temperatures, and lots of different things. So this shows you the level of testing that Marathon have to go through to fulfill all their specifications and their performance for certainly the US Armed Forces. So you can see these watches have been tested in many different ways for the armed forces around the world, and this is why Marathon proves so positive and so reliable a partner. There we go. I won't go on to most of those things, but you'll see. And one of the things that impressed us immediately about Marathon at any price point is the quality of finishing. Now, as I mentioned before, these watches are made in Chronograph, Switzerland, and when you hold a Marathon, and we're looking at the stainless steel cases particularly here with relevance, the quality of finishing is really superb. It's second to none. We're really, when we get a Marathon out of the box and you have a look at it and you show people the care and attention that's been put on these 316L stainless steel cases, the engineering, the precision of the fit, both inside and out, because we have taken these apart, is just very good and very high quality. And it's a really impressive thing to see. So, as I like to say to people, when you're buying a Marathon, just bear in mind you are buying a proper Swiss-made watch with a Swiss movement. As I said, this is the Pilot's Chronograph, and it's 46mm diameter. Now, I'm going to go on to size now because I think it's quite a significant point. And a lot of people tell us that their wrists are slim or these watches are too big. But when we have people come in and see these watches in person, it's interesting how their preconception changes entirely. Personally, I'm happy with the watch up to about 46mm. I find that the key thing I want from a watch is legibility. If I can't read the time or the day or the date, it's just not for me. And I'm very comfortable with the larger watch now. And it's an interesting process when people come in here and we have one customer last week who really wanted the small dial at 36mm, but ended buying a jumbo. And I think, every watch wears differently, and it's a very personal thing, but it's always worth considering sizes and how you might get used to a larger watch. As I said, this is 46mm, and what particularly makes these quite prominent is the depth of the bezel at the side of the case. So you can see this is a very large, tall bezel. So the watch case itself, I think, is pretty good. It's pretty conservative there. But with the bezel on top, which is quite pronounced, you can see the bezel is almost the same thickness as the case itself. You get a 17mm depth here, which is fairly hefty. Saying that, the reason this was done is because both on this and the jumbo diver, which is also 46mm, the key design feature was that this bezel should be turned with a gloved hand, a particular type of gloved hand. I think actually it was the Canadian Navy divers that worked on this bezel. There was a mesh gloved hand that this had to be operated through. So a large bezel was an essential part of this. Slightly overhangs the case. I think you can just see there slightly, but very secure grips here, and you will be able to move this with a gloved hand or wet hand, and very positive and precise. It's unidirectional, and as you can see, once you've got it into place, there is no play at all. So that was one of the prerequisites for this design, was to have a very big bezel that could be moved with a gloved hand. Nothing fiddly here, nothing slippy. This is very positive, as you can see. Moving on to some other features around the case, you can see that the insert here is engraved, which is quite a good feature, so this is not going to rub out, this is not printed, with a superluminova pip at the top here. And again, looking onto the crown pushers here, you can see these are the screw-down variety. So it's a 300-meter water-resistant watch, and for double protection, these crowns and pushers are screwed down. So I'll just get this going now for you, just to activate it. There. Now again, the click here on the buttons is extremely positive. There's no play here. It's straight down and a very positive click. So again, if you were wearing gloved hands, you'd feel that you'd activated the chronograph without looking at it. You've got a very nice positive feedback action. Again, knurled crown here, screw down crown, which is very precise and protected by these guards here. As I said, let's go through some dimensions. So 46mm diameter, 17mm depth, and 52mm lug to lug. So on the back here you've got the military specification numbers, the cage numbers, marathon supplier number, and also some of the performance specifications of the watch, which is really nice, engraved on the back. As I said, these watches are the real thing, issued to various members of the US and Canadian and other armed forces we can't talk about. Watch is powered by the Valjoux 7750. Can't really say enough about this movement. It is the standard chronograph movement that's used widely across the watch industry in watches that can be much more expensive than this, and we just find it a brilliant design. We find it easy to work on, reliable, tough, rugged, and a very clever design. But some real thought's gone into the dial detail of this watch, which I find really interesting. The first thing is that with such small hands, or seemingly small hands, on this marathon, it actually is very clear and easy to read. There's a distance between the hands and the size and the shape that actually makes it really legible. And of course, coming on to the key feature of marathon are the tritium tubes that they use for illumination at night. Now, in the specification I had here for the armed forces, one of the specifications they had was that the watch should be readable after 8 hours in the dark without any external light source. And as you may know or may not know, that tritium tubes are self-illuminating. They don't need you to shine a torch on them. And I can testify they're very long lasting. I mean, you can easily put this on the side when you go to sleep at night, and if you wake up at 5, 6, 7 in the morning, you will be able to read the time. So the tritium tubes that they have on the marathon, they have it at the hour markers and on the hands here, are very legible. One interesting thing about this chronograph, which I haven't seen on many other chronographs, is there is also superluminova on the chronograph functions as well. So on the running second time here, on the 30-minute counter and the 12-hour counter, there is actually superluminova on those hands and superluminova dots. I'm going to put in a loom shot so you can see this, but it just gives a lot of legibility to the dial. Now, one thing I will make very clear is that we find there are two different qualities of superluminova. The superluminova that is done by our Swiss manufacturers we find very good, and certainly more powerful and more legible than superluminova done by other brands, let's say producing in the other parts of the world. But saying that, you will notice that in the photo the superluminova looks lovely and bright and positive, and the tritium tubes look a little bit more dull. Saying that, after an hour or so, you'll notice that the superluminova are consistent in their light output, and after 7 or 8 hours, the superluminova has gone. The tritium is still glowing. So even though that picture will show a disparity between the brightness, don't get fooled. It's the tritium that is the one that will be legible and certainly longer lasting. But it's very interesting to have a chronograph where the chronograph functions are also lit or have some nighttime visibility. Day date here on the Valjoux 7750. These watches are made in Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland, and Marathon manufacture their own tritium tubes. So they have the ability to not only manufacture watches entirely, but their own tritium tubes. That's a technology that they produce in-house, which I think is very interesting. And as they said to me, if we send a watch back to Marathon for service, they have the ability to dispose of that material safely as well, which I think is worth them telling people about. So yeah, as I said, powered by the 7750 Valjoux movement, as I said before, 30-minute counter at the top, very legible. I quite like the graduation on this. 30-minute counter at the top, 12 hour at the bottom, and a running second time which goes with the watch movement, so you can always see the watch movement working. Start, stop, reset here, which you will be familiar with if you know the 7750 movement. And moving on to now to quite a significant feature of this watch is the bracelet. Now, the Marathon Pilot chronograph actually comes on this very well made, I think this is an Italian made rubber strap, waterproof of course, very secure. We sell, and many other brands sell straps from this manufacturer before, and the quality is second to none. In fact, thinking about it as I do this video, can't think of any returns we've ever had on these straps. So very good quality, natural leather rubber, high quality. But as you can see, what we've done here, or I've done here, is fitted this Marathon chronograph with Marathon's own bracelet. Now, I must say that this is one of the best bracelets we've ever seen, and for various reasons. First of all, the quality of finishing, the integration into the case is excellent. The adjustment is positive with little screws here, so you can do it at home, but very positive with screws and tubes. And you'll notice here that the design is, I think, very attractive with these slightly raised areas in the middle of the bracelet. Now, Marathon do various different types of bracelet for different requirements, because again, this is part of the military order. So you can see this is the Canadian Armed Forces badge here. Forgive me for putting the crown at the bottom, but this is the Canadian Armed Forces brand here. We also do US Marine Corps bracelets, and we also do the Great Seal, the United States government Great Seal as well. So there are various options for the bracelet in terms of marking. Again, very positive, beautifully finished. It's a brush finish. You could easily refinish this in our workshops if you've scratched it. Very positive lug, very secure. But one of the things I'd like to point out, and this is where a lot of people get concerned about bracelets, is getting a good fit. Now, this is the fit on my wrist, and it's absolutely precise. And with a watch of this size and weight, you want to get a very good fit that you can adjust. And you'll see that, sorry, I'm going to take this off again. You'll see that there actually is quite a lot of micro adjustments. Some bracelets we see from manufacturers have one, some have two. Marathon have actually given you 5 micro adjustment points, and certainly I find if I'm changing climates, if I'm going somewhere warmer, my wrist will expand, and I want to have that adjustment. But it also allows me to really finely adjust this bracelet to my wrist size. I can get a very positive, secure fit without being over tight. And I'm really impressed with the quality of these bracelets. There is a diver extension as well, should you need it. But it's a really impressive piece of kit. And as I said, it puts to shame some very expensive manufacturers, not that we sell, but otherwise as well, who I think that this bracelet is certainly on a par with, if not better. So that's available as an option for the Marathon chronograph. Now, the last and final part for this is to tell you that I've been so impressed with this watch that I've bought this, and I've actually been wearing this for the last 3 months. Why have I bought it? I just think the build quality is impeccable. I think the design is clear and legible. I think it's tough and functional, and I'm very, very strongly of the opinion that with the way Swiss watch prices are going and will go in the next couple of years, you're going to see a marked difference in what you pay for a watch now and what you will pay for a watch, in the coming years. And I think for a Swiss-made watch with a military heritage, with functionality and clarity, and with this quality of bracelet, I think it's a real worthwhile piece to a collection. Of course, the quality that Marathon provide, not just for this watch, but for all of their watches, is superb, and the value for money, I think, is superb, especially if you consider these are Swiss-made watches with the tritium feature, with Swiss-made movements. I think the value is stunning. So now the Marathon Pilot chronograph on my 6.75-inch wrist. I wear this watch daily, or have been for the last couple of months. Very easy to wear with a shirt cuff. I've purposely put a shirt cuff on with a jumper over it, so you can see it's not restricted at all. Very comfortable to wear, especially with the Marathon bracelet, and a great everyday companion that will stand up to the rigours of most trials and tribulations here at Page & Cooper. As usual, if you have any questions about Marathon watches, or indeed any of the other watches we sell, just drop us an email, give us a telephone call, or pop in and see us sometime. Thanks for watching.